I think that if we look at Brexit, the consequences of Brexit are already being felt in the European and UK juice markets. And I think it's interesting for companies to address those issues at the moment. I basically identify 4 different areas that markets will change because of Brexit. The first one is economy and foreign exchange. And we've seen pound sterling devaluate quite a lot against the euro. This has impact for companies that export to the UK, but also for UK companies that export to Europe. On top of that, we think that the competitive landscape will change because the UK market becomes more attractive or less attractive with changes in the currency. The second issue I talked about was like the access to employers under like new Brexit rules. It will become harder for people from the EU to work in the UK. And because in the juice industry about 40% of people come from the EU, we think that it will be hard for juice companies in the UK to find sufficiently skilled people to work in the industry. The third item that I talked about was changes in regulation. We've heard a lot about regulations that are like a hindrance for companies, but I think that on balance, regulation is like quite a good thing, and a lot of the rules that are currently in place from the EU should be copied to protect like companies and consumers alike. The fourth item that I talked about was changes in trade flows. At the moment, there is a lot of trade taking place between the EU and the UK without any tariffs. And a big question will be whether this still be the case in the future. First, the UK will join the WTO and most favored nation tariffs will come in place. But then it's up to discussions between the EU and the UK what kind of bilateral trade agreements can be struck. These trade agreements can either be like more protective, in which case trade will suffer, or more liberal. Now, more liberal than zero with the EU is impossible, but the UK could have more liberal trade deals with other parts of the world, for example China or Latin America. And that would change the trade flows. And I think this will have a large impact on companies both in the UK and Europe. And I think rather than waiting for this to happen, I think companies should have a scenario ready how to react when the details of those new trade deals will become known.